If your job at a healthcare facility includes disinfecting against viruses, you know prevention is the best medicine. And maintaining healthy spaces starts with a healthy cleaning routine. Grainger's world-class supply chain helps ensure you have the quality products you need when you need them. From disinfectants and cleaning supplies to personal protective equipment, so you can help deliver a clean bill of health. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Empire.
Hello and welcome to my podcast. Do me a favor, subscribe to the John Conn Report wherever you get your podcasts. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. You can find us there as part of Empire Media, AMPIRE. Always much appreciated when you tune in. And don't forget, you can read my work on ESPN.com. I have a story up now about how the Commanders' offseason impacts their draft plans. And it could be because of what they did at a particular position. Maybe it lessens the need to get one at 29, or at least gives them the flexibility to find a certain position later in the draft when maybe before free agency, like tackle, offensive tackle, they definitely wanted one. If you didn't get one in free agency via the trade for Laramie Tunsil, then they would have definitely wanted to take one pretty high in this draft. And as it is, well, we'll get into all that later. But anyway, so that's up on ESPN.com right now. Also, in a minute, I'll be joined by a bunch of my colleagues who cover the Commanders. So it's Nicki, Jhabvala, and Sam Fortier from the Washington Post, Ben Standig from The Athletic, and also the Last Man Standig Podcast, JP Finlay from a few places, 106.7, Monumental Sports, NBC Sports, and then Mitch Tischler from Monumental as well. So anyway, by the way, Ben did a nice little thing on The Athletic the other day, so give it a read. It was about just different scenarios for the draft, like if Washington wants to be ultra aggressive, if they trade back, if they stay put, if they do this, here are guys that he would look at in these rounds. So always a good read there from Ben. So anyways, give that a read, and there you go. So I'll get to them all in a minute, but a couple programming notes before we get there. One, there's no real update on the RFK Stadium situation. As I know you know by now, it's very close, but with politics and sports, until it's done, it's got to be done, folks. But it is very close, and as I said this for the club members last week, that there's a lot of optimism surrounding this, of course, as I'm sure you've read, and it looks really good, but they still got to get it. Listen, man, you got to get across that goal line, and it's not across the goal line just yet, but very, very promising. So there you go. But no real update other than that. So anyways, and then for the ESPN NFL Nation mock draft, some of you, if you've followed that for years, we've done this for a long time. That will air on ESPN on Tuesday from 3 to 4. And so give that a watch. Now, in this mock, I've already made my pick. But in this particular mock, it's what I think they will do when confronted with the possibilities at 29 with in the scenario I was presented. There are a couple of guys that I felt like would have been a definite possibility. They both went earlier, and I'll talk about those, actually after the fact, because I'm not going to talk about it before. Anyways, so just know that it's what I think they will do, because there's one player that I'm like, I love this guy, but I don't know that they'll take him in the first round. So, but I do think this is a guy they like, because it's a guy who definitely visited. They've met with him, a few times. So there you go. Anyway, that will come on Tuesday, ESPN from 3 to 4. Kevin DeGandhi and Mike Tannenbaum will be your hosts on the show and kind of picking the picks apart. And so there you go. A couple other things. One, I'm recording this on Easter, so happy Easter to everybody. And two, a little personal note here. If you're a certain age, 50 or over, get your PSA for pancreatic cancer, because it is very important. And if 5 of you people out here listening today, go and get it because I said something, thank you. But this is something that's hitting a little bit, it's near and dear to my heart right now. So do me a favor, go get your PSA. I got mine a week and a half ago. And fortunately, seems pretty clear, but do me a favor and go get that if you are a certain age. So I apologize for some public service announcement, but I do think it's important. And sometimes you don't know what you have until you take that test. And there may be no symptoms. You can take that test. And It's funny. My doctor told me to wait till you're a certain age. I'm like, and I kind of fought that. And I think anybody should fight that too. Don't wait till you're 60 or whatever to get it. Get it much earlier than that. So, anyways, just a little public service announcement from me. I appreciate you and I appreciate your indulgence in that. Anyway, that's it from me. Oh, by the way, one last thing is I will be back on Tuesday. I'm going to be doing some draft notes and thoughts heading into the draft, obviously Thursday night. And then I am going to be talking to Logan Paulson as well for another one that comes out probably on Wednesday. So, and I'll also do one after the first round, do one after day 2, do one after the final round of the draft as well. And then probably another one wrapping it all up for later on too. So there's a lot to come with the draft content. So anyways, folks, that's it from me. Now, here's my Commander beat reporting colleagues, Nicki, Sam, Ben, JP, and Mitch.
If your job at a healthcare facility includes disinfecting against viruses, you know prevention is the best medicine. And maintaining healthy spaces starts with a healthy cleaning routine. Grainger's world-class supply chain helps ensure you have the quality products you need when you need them. From disinfectants and cleaning supplies to personal protective equipment, so you can help deliver a clean bill of health. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
BetOnline is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for all your sports betting action. Baseball season is in full swing, and we've just started the NBA and NHL playoffs, which has more ways to stay in on the action with the latest odds, news, and scores, even live in-game betting while the games are being played. With the largest selection of odds on everything from the MLB, NHL, and the UFC, BetOnline remains the number one online source for all your sports wagering info. In between games, head over to the BetOnline casino with all the top Vegas-style games, including poker and a live casino. Bet online. The game starts here.
All right, everyone. So I want to bring all my pals on here to talk about the draft, even though we don't have the intrigue of last year. In some ways, it's a lot more mysterious because of the 29th pick. And so I got my little panel of experts here, plus Sam. So there we go. Sam back from Spain, where you're now an international TikTok star. So I think that's all. I appreciate you coming on here with the regulars now. But I wanted to start with the draft, and just let's get into the draft. And so actually, let me introduce, because if people aren't watching, I got Nicki Jhabvala from the Post, JP Finlay from about 5 different outlets, Sam Fortier from the Post, Ben Standig from the Athletic, and Mitch Tischler from Monumental. So there we go. Now you know who's on here. Let's start with the draft. But I want to start with, what do you feel is the biggest need entering the draft? And if they did enough in free agency to kind of go where they can go anywhere. Nicki, let's start with you.
I think their biggest need is still edge rusher. I don't think they had enough last year. They clearly didn't. And I mean, John Allen was probably their best pass rusher when he was healthy, and now he's gone. So I think they could add there. And I don't know. I think this class is deep enough there where they could get somebody pretty good at 29 if they want to go edge rusher in the first round. So I like that, or trading back. The question is, who would want to trade up in this draft? And I don't know that they'll have many. So maybe Cleveland if they're going for a quarterback, but I don't. Do they want to cut a deal with the Giants and have them come back in for them to get a quarterback? I don't know. So I think they should go edge rusher or tackle. If there is a tackle they feel good about.
Offensive tackle?
Offensive tackle.
Okay. Yeah, I like that thought. But I would say this, if this quarterback class isn't that deep, I'm okay with the Giants trying to get one there. So
yeah,
it may kind of be a win-win for them. Mitch, I know, by the way, Mitch is doing a first-round mock with just offensive linemen. So I look forward to that coming out. Mitch, what do you think?
Listen, JP and I did our mock draft on our podcast, and I had 0 offensive linemen taken in the draft, assuming there were no trades, which is an anomaly for me.
Wow.
And as much as I think edge rusher is a huge need, I think corner has to be 1B over there, because you're putting a whole lot of hope into Marshawn Lattimore being a better player than we saw on the field last year and returning to where he was, you can bring in Will Harris, who can play a little slot, and move Mikey Sainer still outside, and kind of, you know, put it together with bubble gum and scotch tape. But to me, I think corner's got to be right up there at the top, because I think even if you get a stud edge rusher, if you think this front four is going to be able to consistently get to the quarterback, I think you're being probably overly optimistic. So the back end's going to have to cover. So for me, corner's the number one spot.
I definitely agree that you got to get a corner in this draft, just because if something happens to Lattimore, you have your next three corners are probably best suited to play inside. They can play outside, but then you're left with two smaller guys on the outside. Ben Standig from the Athletic, he's going to have his mock draft out probably next week, but also he's adding a twist with the UDFA mock. I appreciate that, Ben. I think that's pretty ballsy of you to do that. So let's go.
Well, wait till you see the story I have up probably Thursday. There will be UDFA mentioned, so it's a funny bit. I mean, I don't disagree with anything. I guess I'll just to throw in a different angle. Like we saw last year, they're not afraid to do the best player available situation with the Johnny Newton pick, and I think they still are deficient in a couple of these areas. There's no upside at the edge rusher. Mitch mentioned the corner, and I agree with the offensive line, but they are kind of in a position to take whatever they want. I mean, other than quarterback, nothing would really surprise me. Like they did a good job in free agency of like creating a viable rotation at pretty much every spot. Again, I'm not saying that's the same as saying it's good enough, but like if they decide, hey, we like somebody else besides the edge rusher, like they have a rotation. Same thing at mostly other spots. So to that end, I think they could go best player. But yeah, I mean, I think edge, corner. I think they need more speed on offense. Maybe that's the thing I hadn't been mentioned yet. But yeah, I think they're in a good position to be able to do what they want. But there are a couple of areas they certainly need some help in.
And listen to the Last Man Standing podcast. Sam Fortier, who just got back from Spain, and boy, are his arms tired. So, go ahead. Anyways, so that reminds me of a story, and Sam knows the text. I just texted him this morning. He mentioned the paella. I'm a big fan of paella. When my wife and I were over in Valencia, we had paella. It was chicken and rabbit. And I told Sam I missed the opportunity to tell the waiter that there was a hair in my food. So anyways, Sam, what do you... Thank you for that reaction, Nicki.
I'm pretty impressed that you have like a bad, like 15-second soundbite to introduce every single person. That's like true podcast hosting, is you're like teeing up everyone with a bad bit. I would say, to kind of go back to what was mentioned earlier, like I think if they can, trading down would be great, but obviously you need a partner to trade up. But they're only like, I think when I look at their trade down opportunity, it's hard for me to imagine that someone who wants to go up wouldn't go to Minnesota at 24, because Minnesota only has 4 picks, the fewest in the draft. And so if you're Washington, like you got to think to yourself, how am I going to compete with the desperation or the motivation that Minnesota would have to trade down? And the one other thing I would say, like to me, edge rusher and corner are probably 1A, 1B in terms of if they do stick and pick. I wouldn't be surprised though about receiver if wow, wait, hold on. I just noticed Mitch has a hat on. What is this? What is that?
It's my hat from the Running of the Bulls Festival last year in Spain. I figured in our review I would throw it on and rock it for the podcast.
If you're not watching this, you got to now go to
say everybody's got to tune in.
Can somebody take a screenshot? I need a new avatar.
At receiver, if that's the best player on their board, I could see it, like Luther Burden, and a guy from the lowercase T Ohio State University could be there. So
which
like
one?
Ibuka.
Yeah.
But I think that those guys could be options as well to add speed on offense, as Standig said.
We could do a Brady Bunch bit right now with these boxes if you want. Maybe not. JP.
What is the Brady Bunch?
Oh my God.
Wow.
Oh
I knew that was coming. That is incredible.
I appreciate the joke. There's no way he doesn't know that. Come on.
All right, JP.
Hard to compete with all the stand-up comedians in this room. I think I kind of agree with what everybody has said. The only area I would say they're definitely not going to take at 29 would be tight end. You bring Ertz back, you get Bates long-term done. You just drafted Senate. The tackle thing is really interesting. And I think these dudes have the confidence and kind of now the capital that if they took a tackle at 29, consider the draft capital they've invested to tackle in 1 year
Right.
between the Tunsil trade and taking Coleman. So they're admitting that Coleman's a guard. I can understand it because their greatest asset is Jaden, and you should do everything you can to protect your greatest asset. It would kind of surprise me maybe. I think it's edge. I've been pretty vocal that Michael Williams is the dude I think would be the dream. I don't think he quite gets there. I think trading back Fortier, that's interesting about the Vikings stuff, but like there also could be more than one team that wants to trade up. You know what I mean? Like one team gets to the Vikings, but that doesn't mean there's not other teams, especially if you buy into some of this QB talk around Dart or Milrow or even the Louisville kid whose name I cannot figure out how to pronounce. And for me, though, the dude that makes the most sense, and the fact that they just had him to Topgolf, is Ezraku with the BC kid that is just like a no doubt consistent pass rusher. And they could use one of those dudes, and odds are he'll be there. So, like, if you're looking for kind of your safest, what you think would happen, I think it's Ezraku. Hopefully I'm saying that correctly, too.
You are, and I think he's the guy that I kind of targeted just because I think he'll be there, and it dovetails with what they could use. It wouldn't surprise me if they go with an interior pass rusher because there are a couple of those if you can't get the edge guy you like. But I also think like corner might be the better value there. But what's a position? Throw it to open to anybody. What's a position that you say, okay, regardless of position, this is a guy that if they got him, would be really good. It doesn't matter the position, like because at this point they just help anybody get the roster. Like I look at a guy like Travion Henderson as a guy, or Marion Hampton, one of those guys. I don't know that you take him at 29, but like one of those types of guys would really add to this offense and give it some juice.
I love Henderson. That like in a world in which position value didn't matter, like I would take him at 29 probably. But I don't know if he'll be there, and then B, they could use an upgrade at running back, but it's not like they don't have running backs, and obviously the other positions are just simply more valuable. So that would be my issue. But
you think Henderson could be gone by 29, Benny?
I mean, who knows? But like he just visited Denver and Pittsburgh. The Pittsburgh one is weird because they don't have a second round pick. So is Pittsburgh, fronting that they would consider taking him at either 21 or if they drop down a little bit, maybe. And Denver's obviously like constantly mentioned for a running back. So if Hampton were to be gone, I don't think it's crazy that he would be gone.
21.
I like,
but yeah, like he's a guy that I would love. What, JP?
I definitely like Henderson. I think you got to move back to make that make sense, but I guess 29 isn't crazy. For like the guys I love are like further down the draft, like two dudes I've developed my annual draft crushes on. Sorry, Johnny. One of them's Ann Arbor. I think that kid Josiah Stewart is
he's good.
I think he's still evolving. Like I think you're getting a guy that could really become something perhaps over time. And I like these guys as a draft and develop bunch. And then I love that kid Thornton from Tennessee. I just think you're getting really high end speed at a cheap price tag. And I think what we saw Diami become late last year, you've lost that. And I think I may be incorrect on this, but I almost think Thornton can give you that element right away. And then if he can evolve and become a better route runner and give you other stuff over the years, you really got something.
And I like that theory. Like you're right. Like Stewart's an evolving guy. I think the kid from UCLA, Olafadu, is kind of in that same mold where if you got him later, whereas like my Ohio State guy, Sawyer, JTT, I kind of think they are what they are. You know exactly what you're getting.
Sure.
Some of the other ones, maybe there's some more upside. I think the other beauty with this, with what they've, I don't know if you guys agree, but what they've done in free agency, it lessens the need for a guy to come right in and be an impact 3-down guy. Come in, be a pass rusher, evolve with the other parts. But I don't,
Well, I think that's what they've done well for a couple seasons now is making sure that you don't have to come in and they have to be impact players right away, obviously outside of quarterback. A guy that I've kind of fallen in love with, I don't know if he's going to be there at 29 or not, is Shamar Stewart, the defensive end from A&M. And what I liked most about him was just kind of reading up on his, draft profiles and stuff like that. Responsibility in the run. And I think when we talk about getting an edge rusher, it's important to get somebody who can get to the quarterback, but it's also important to get somebody who's going to be responsible in the run because we saw what the various run offenses did against this team, all year long. And so I think there are a couple of guys in this draft who are kind of straight speed guys and can get to the quarterback, but aren't necessarily helpful on first and second down. And I think if you're gonna stay at 29 and pick at 29 and not try and move back and add picks, I think you got to get a guy who can help you out all three downs on the line.
He's an interesting guy too, Mitch, because like you talk to some people, like, is he a top 10 guy? He's got those traits. If he falls at 29, why does he fall that far? But he's got those traits, and he did a good Senior Bowl. So,
well, his sack numbers in college were essentially non-existent. So I think
the pressure was high. The
pressures were high, exactly.
So how do you take that?
1.5 sacks, 3 consecutive years is insane, especially because it's kind of low. But that's just insane.
You also got to think about the conference that he played in. The offenses were all spread offenses, and you read what you read, and obviously people are putting out positive stuff about it. But I guess one of the overwhelming thoughts were both of those. Is it Scourton and him? They didn't ask their DNs. Their DNs weren't asked to rush the passer directly. They were drop back in coverage some. They were sealing off edges and stuff like that. So I think you can look at it a bunch of different ways, but certainly 4.5 career sacks in college is not something that would inspire a ton of confidence that he's going to turn into a elite edge rusher. But I do think I think that he's going to be able to do both in the NFL, both get to the quarterback or at least put pressure on the quarterback and set an edge in the run.
If they drafted him, I feel like that would be a real vote of confidence for that coaching staff, Kerrigan in particular. Yeah. Like, do they believe that his tutelage can get that guy where he needs to go? Because obviously he does have the traits, but I would be very curious. And it would fit. I think that, like, if they stay in the first round, I think that they're going to use their premium picks on premium positions, especially like because you get that 5th-year option. Like, I would be surprised if they picked a running back or a safety or a linebacker. Like, I think that all the positions we talked about, edge rusher, corner, receiver, or tackle, like I think all those would fit kind of the archetype of what you're looking for because you would have that extra control potentially. But with a Shamar Stewart, like, do you think that he can get there? I don't know what their internal belief would be, but if they do think so, like, definitely hit the button because he looks like it on tape.
Yeah, the guy I like I don't think he'll be there is Donovan Jackson. Just the way he can play guard, switches midseason to tackle, becomes an All-American. Like that's phenomenal to me. And you hear nothing but good things about him, just his preparation. Coaches, players love him. Believe he was a captain, right? Smart kid. So I feel like he checks all the boxes, and that versatility, it gives them options with Brandon Coleman. They really could let him, try to test out right tackle. If it doesn't work, you could move either of them to guard. Gives them flexibility with Wiley too, who I don't know will be there that much longer. But I mean, he's got a year left. So I don't think he'll be there. But in the off chance he is, and then like JP said, Travion Henderson would be great, but I wouldn't take him at 29. If you can trade back with Cleveland and get him at the top of the second, that'd be ideal.
And you forgot to mention that Donovan Jackson also has a ring, so that's good. But I would agree with like Travion Henderson. I don't think I would take him at 29 for exactly what Sam said. Like I would prefer a premium spot there where the value of the contract is in addition to the player and the position kind of matches with where they're at right now. Whereas like running back, you're going to cycle through them a little bit more. And I would, if they got Henderson in the second round by trading back and picking up another pick, that'd be great. I also think their running backs later in the draft, like if they went edge corner and then they got Tootin for Virginia Tech and then maybe somehow get another pick and get an offensive lineman in there, I think that'd be a pretty darn good draft.
Yeah. I like that Tosh Brooks too. I mean, he's just fun to watch. I don't know that he can do a lot of the stuff that he's doing at Texas Tech at the pro level, but I mean, if anybody can truly vet him, it's probably Cliff Kingsbury. I hear he's got serious connections to Texas Tech. But I think he's fun to watch.
Isn't Anthony Lynn a Red Raider too?
And Wes Welker.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
like
forgot about Wes
I think they
Welker.
could get the information they needed. But yeah,
Forget the Commanders. We have the Comraders.
Raiders
It's what if they change the name of the team to the Washington Red Raiders?
don't
I
start
trademark
can't
that
wait for
issue.
the
shit.
Athletic article about that, Ben.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think they're going to change
By
it
the way, just
anything?
on the running back thing, like I heard a report the other day that Washington apparently wants a 3 down back. I think like part of the issue with this draft feels like obviously you never know. That's the whole point of the running back. A lot of guys can do it, but like there's the top three guys with Henderson being the third more or less, and then after that it's not like everybody else has like they do one thing or the other thing, but they don't really do all the things. So if you do want that, if you think, hey, if we add that running back element to what we already have on offense, that takes us to the next level. That would be my only justification for saying do it at 29. If because it's either do that or you just probably are not getting that guy this year.
No,
Well,
and
dude, I mean, think about the Lions, right? Like they took a linebacker at what 15, they took Gibbs at like 13 or whatever. Like if you think that's the dude, that's the dude.
Right.
You know, I feel like when they did that, they were sort of further along in their rebuild. It's like, okay, we need these guys to do this specific thing to elevate our ceiling. Whereas I feel like, I don't know, I feel like the Commanders are still elevating the floor where you need guys like that are athletic and versatility, kind of the things that we're talking about, premium positions.
That's the thing we're talking a lot about offensive players. We've mentioned some of the defensive guys, but most of what they did in the free agency feels like it was on the offensive side. And so to me, that almost leans towards you start building up through the draft, and at least on the defensive side. I think that I love Travion Henderson, but I think he's maybe a little bit of a luxury for this team right now because I think there are enough holes that still need to get filled, and there's going to be a speedster running back at some point later in the draft that you can potentially pick up, and doesn't have the same proven skill that Travion has, but because you're still filling other holes because this team was so devoid of draft picks for so long, running back isn't a premium position like we've been saying.
well, that's where I agree too. Like that's why I say if they and we all, it's so easy to say trade back and get more picks because as Sam pointed out, you guys talked about, like it's so hard to be able to accomplish that, especially in a draft where it's not as deep as it's been. So how many guys are truly going to you're going to want to move up for? Maybe there's a run on tackles and some team moves up for that. But if they could come away with this with an edge, a corner, a running back, and an O lineman, I think that in the first 4 rounds, I think that'd be a major success. What do you think?
Sure. I mean, they like I said, they could do pretty much everything. I mean, what you just said, those positions absolutely make sense. But like the other thing is like we focus so much on this year, like because they have so many guys on 1 year deals and guys like Ertz and Wagner are older, and realistically, can we assume that they're going to be here another year? Like I don't think it's crazy to get the contingency plan.
Right.
It's harder with 5 picks, I grant you that, but it's crazy. Can I just double click one thing? Mitch mentioned Nick Scorton or Scourton, however you say it.
Yeah,
Like,
Scott.
obviously, I don't know the guy like personally, but like everything I read, this guy is like their notion of like they want to draft a commander. That guy is the dude. I mean, he would help with the edge. He's just a relentless competitor.
Yeah.
At 19, he was a team captain at Purdue while leading the Big Ten in sacks. Everything I read to me says this guy is what they would want. Now, he's not typically being mocked at 29, but that guy, if I had to pick one guy that is that, maybe there's a 6 round guy I don't know about, but that guy I would imagine is something that they're absolutely looking for.
No, I think that's a great point because he does fit. And there's a couple guys that fit after the first round at that position that I think would be deeply intriguing for them as well. So, do first of all, how different is this from last year? Like in the last 5 years, like to not even mention quarterback. I know, like Sam, you said that they still should draft, they should look at Shedeur Sanders. If he falls there, I'm going to disagree with that. But it's weird to not have to really bring up quarterback and not even to look at a quarterback.
How weird was it at the combine that we barely talked to anybody? I think the most interesting or intriguing part of the quarterback conversation this year is with the Commanders at 29. Does a team trade back in to get that
Right.
5th year option? Like the Ravens did with Lamar Jackson, other teams have done along the way. But I mean, Shedeur Sanders in last year's draft would have been what number quarterback taken? Like I think the quarterback talent this year is just much lower than we saw last year, and I think the teams that were super quarterback, needy last year made some moves, unless you were the New York Giants, to go do that.
Can I ask you a question, Kyle, on this scenario? If the Giants, who have the second pick in the second round, say, "Hey, we got to trade up. We want to get Jalen Milroe," and like the way the board falls, like they go to Washington and say, "Hey, we'll do a trade with you." It's one thing to make a trade in a division for cornerbacks. It's another thing for quarterbacks. But would you make that deal for if they're going to take a quarterback, whoever it is, would you make that deal with the Giants?
Are we not gonna pretend like we didn't have this conversation earlier?
Did we? When
Okay,
today?
great.
I didn't
Yeah.
realize.
Yes.
I didn't realize Tarek El-Bashir was on the call.
Oh, did we? I totally missed
Thank
it.
you.
Sorry.
We kind of did. We kind of did.
I
but
just want Nicki and Ben to fight again.
Yeah.
No.
Nicki's instigating already.
No, not. This is my normal personality.
But I will say, in that scenario, I like. Then it depends on, do you believe in that quarterback? Like if these guys Scott Miller, go ahead. And I think with picking a quarterback there, I want the picks because those picks can help me right now, right? Like if you trade back, get another second round pick, let's say they get a third out of that, you could find 4 guys that can help you this year. And you're loading up in the sweet spot of this draft, which is rounds 2 through 4, which I don't know. What do you think?
And the sweet spot of Jaden's rookie deal. Like, yeah, you saw it last year. I mean, they traded back with the Eagles, and the Eagles got DeJean, who looks like a hell of a player, but they like what they got. Like,
but it's quarterback. The difference is
I understand. I understand there's a positional difference. I understand that, but I think they got to be focused on. I go back to the Quan Martin quote when they were going to Detroit for the divisional round game. He's like, "Yeah, they're good, but we're good too." Like, I think they just build their thing and focus on getting the best team they can. I also have to hop off, but I wanted to ask one quick question. Nicki, are you wearing a Commander sweatshirt? What are you wearing?
No. So whenever I go on a road trip, it says Washington D.C. I get these at every airport because they're $19 and they're super comfortable, and it's like half my wardrobe now. So I have 3 cities. So
how many I Heart New York sweatshirts do you have?
What? How many
I Heart New York?
I don't have any. Maybe I should start those. I bet they're cheap at the airport too.
Also,
I just want cheap.
JP, you know how like people when they go out of town they buy gifts for the place they visit? Well, from where Nicki lives, DC is like a road trip. So
it is.
Sam just had to bolt. He says goodbye.
Bye.
All right, see,
I'll bring you back a sweatshirt, Nick. See ya.
Thanks.
Right, well, we'll just go a couple more minutes now. Now we can get into the good stuff, okay? Like, anyways. But is there where do you feel? Last thing we can talk about is where this roster is at, and how much have they closed the gap on the Eagles, and what might be able to get there through this draft?
I don't know that their defense is necessarily better. I don't know that it's worse. I mean, John Allen was only available 8 games last year, but I'm not completely sold on the changes they made to the defensive line. I know they wanted to get bigger, which I agree with. Not sold on the Javon Kinlaw signing yet, hoping he changes my mind. In the secondary, it's still, you don't know what it's going to look like with the pieces they have. They have a lot of versatility. How are they going to use them? We'll see. So that's still probably the biggest concern for me at this point. I love the Tunsil trade. It's nice to see a team like actually really invest in an offensive line. I mean, yeah, I like the Deebo Samuel one. It's like no risk really. So yeah, I like those changes, but I'm still not sure about the defense, if it's going to be better, worse, same.
It's funny to look at this Dan Quinn team, a guy who's obviously made a career on the defensive side of the ball. But I think you have to, almost no matter what happens in the draft, go into the season thinking the best defense is going to be a good offense. And I think the Laramie Tunsil trade kind of highlights that, or puts an exclamation point on that, because he might just be one player, but the effect of that one player goes across the rest of the offensive line, and quite frankly, across the rest of the offense, because I think you're not going to have to see as many tight ends stay in to help blocking, so you get extra receivers and routes. Hopefully that helps Jaden, more explosive offense, all those different things. And as it pertains to getting, closer to the Eagles, I think you can't look at this Eagles team and not recognize that they lost almost half of their starting defense, or 5 of their 11 starters and a couple key contributors. And it's not that I necessarily think that that defense is going to take a big step back, because they have some really nice cornerstone pieces to it. But I do think you have to recognize that that's going to be a different looking defense than what we saw last year and the past couple seasons. And, you hope that you're able to take advantage of some more turmoil up there. 3 straight years they've lost offensive coordinators. I mean, things are constantly evolving, constantly changing, and they've done an incredible job of keeping kind of the core together and keeping moving forward and taking steps up. But at some point, all this change and all this, I'm going to call it chaos within the team, with quarterback, wide receiver, head coach, all the different things that and NFL history has showed us that eventually that takes a toll on a team. And I don't wonder if this year is maybe the year that the Eagles start taking a little bit of a step back, as they had the long playoff run, Super Bowl, all those different things, plus all these changes.
Yeah, which is a good point. And one thing too, that you take from the Eagles is to continue building that offensive line. So there you go, Mitch. But that's whether it's a depth guy in the 4th round or someone who can come in and maybe challenge for a starting job right away. But also, to your point on the offensive players, is they face a tougher road of defenses this year than they did last year. And I think it's like they'll have like 8 games against teams that finished in the top like 14 or so in defense last year. So like it's more than last year. Now, if it plays out that way, we don't know. But it's why, like, if you continue to add on offense, if you have to, then I don't have a problem with that, because you make your offense better, because you're going to be facing better D. So anyways, what Ben will give you the last word here.
Well, and just like what Mitch said before about sometimes the best defense can be the good offense, whatever. That's, again, sort of I'm not trying to talk anybody into saying they should take a running back, but like to that end, like that is still we still don't quite know. Like, did they think the running game issues last year at the end of the year was about the actual backs, Brian Robinson, no Eckler, or the line? Does Tunsil change that? We know he's good as a pass protector, run blocking. Not as good, but so there's that. But yeah, I don't know. Like, if they've gotten better, it's like on the margins. It's like Dietrich Wise is better against the run than Dante Fowler. Is that enough to drop them from 30th to more middle of the pack? That type of deal. I don't know, but I think that's why. Like, I'm with, I think Nicki said about the Kinlaw. We'll see. I mean, is Will Harris a straight out swap for Jeremy Chinn? I don't know if he is based on the Chinn we saw at the end of the year. So yeah, I think they need some more, but on defense in particular, for me to say they're catching, if it's not the Eagles, whoever is the next thing.
And I also think a guy like Johnny Newton has to continue to progress, because if he does, then it gives you another jolt in a spot where, like, he started, there's some things he flashed later in the year. Does he progress? Does he give you more of that inside push that you're losing from not having John Allen? So anyway.
Can I tell you my defensive strategy for this team this year? Tell Daron Payne, you saw what just happened to John Allen. The same thing is going to happen to you if you don't play better. So consider this your contract year, and then he gets 10 sacks. Right? I mean, that's what I would do, because if he is able to be something akin to what we saw a couple years ago, then this whole thing can look different. But the fact that we're not even discussing him, that's like the main piece on that line says a lot about where he's been the last couple of years.
And don't throw any punches at any of the other D tackle.
Yeah, don't do that.
Well, I think we're going to have to end on that note. Thank you guys very much, Nicki, Ben, Mitch, for sticking on, then JP and obviously Sam for joining earlier. Appreciate you guys, and thanks a lot.
If you work in quality control at a candy factory, you know strict safety regulations come with the job. It's why you partner with Grainger. Grainger helps you find the high quality and compliant products your business needs to inspect, detect, and help correct issues. And the sweetest part is, everyone gets a product that's as safe to eat as it is delicious. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
That's it for this episode. Thanks to Nicki, Sam, JP, Mitch, and Ben for joining me. And thank you, as always, for tuning in. And I'll be back on Tuesday with another episode. So I will talk to you next time.
For the ones who get it done, the most important part is the one you need now. And the best partner is the one who can deliver. That's why millions of maintenance and repair pros trust Grainger, because we have professional-grade supplies for every industry, even hard-to-find products. And we have same-day pickup and next-day delivery on most orders. But most importantly, we have an unwavering commitment to help keep you up and running. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.